Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. During his 26-year reign at Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson won 38 trophies and made success the norm at the club. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has yet to win any silverware in his 2 years with the Reds, but United have still won 5 trophies since Ferguson left, including 2 Community Shields, an FA Cup, League Cup, and a Europa League. The silverware has come under 3 different managers. But what tactics and philosophies did each of these managers bring in search of a new identity post-Ferguson? In this video, we take a look. And if you want to keep up with your favorite teams and players, check out the OneFootball app. It will give you team and player stats, transfer news, and so much more, absolutely free through the sponsored link in the description below. It is obvious that the United board didn't have a clear transition plan, as shown by their scattergun approach in both the profile and style of manager they appointed. Initially, they selected David Moyes, a well-respected Premier League manager, known more for the defensive elements of his teams. They then pivoted completely with Louis van Gaal, another manager late on in his career, but with a good international reputation. He was known for his positional brand of possession football. Finally, they moved on to Mourinho, a superstar manager known for his pragmatism and adaptability. There is no through line in what type of identity they were looking for with these 3 managers. But let's first take a look at Moyes. His main incomes were Marouane Fellaini in the summer transfer window and Juan Mata in the winter transfer window, as he was not given that much to spend. One of the reasons that Mata came in was that Robin van Persie's injuries had returned to haunt him, meaning that throughout the season he missed a combined 104 days through injury, covering 22 matches. So where Moyes' first choice 11 had Rooney in behind Van Persie and looking to combine, as they had done so successfully during Ferguson's final title-winning season. Now instead, Mata came into the 10 position and Rooney was pushed further forward into the striker role as he opted for a 4-2-3-1. One of the major criticisms under Moyes was the inefficiency of the midfield. In their prior time together at Everton, Fellaini had functioned as a second striker, looking to receive the ball, but now Moyes dropped him deeper to play in the double pivot alongside Carrick more often. And while Fellaini was a perfectly serviceable deep midfielder, often playing the role with Belgium, at United he came under constant criticism. His passing range was limited and he tended to slow down the flow of attacks, so when the ball often got into the midfield, it often got caught up there. There were also less runners from midfield, as both he and Carrick are more physically limited. Rooney playing higher up was a factor, as when he played as an attacking midfielder, he was often more willing to drop in alongside the double pivot and use his more expansive passing range to release runners in behind. Mata, on the other hand, preferred to stay between the lines to look to thread balls into the forward. So, United's double pivot could come under pressure. So Moyes looked to adapt by bypassing the midfield and usually utilizing the wide regions. In fact, no one attacked through the center of the pitch less often than United. They instead looked to utilize the wide regions. The conservative double pivot often allowed the fullbacks to flood forward, and both Evra and Raphael would look to join the attack, and down the right, Raphael would often look to overlap. And they often did get into good crossing positions in this way. However, both he and Valencia were extremely right-footed, meaning there was never any threat of anyone coming infield, making the attacks more predictable. Down the left, Ashley Young could cut in for the shot or cross, but he could also go down the line. Evra was also willing to go forward, but Young was also efficient in covering his aging legs on the defensive end of things. But as we see, crosses were a big part of their game, with the most crosses per game in the league. This worked better when Rooney and Van Persie played, but with his injuries, Rooney was usually the only target in the box, with Fellaini only joining when they were chasing a goal. After a poor start to the season, with predictable tactics meaning that teams could adapt, Moyes was shown the door. And in came the eccentric Dutchman, Louis van Gaal, off the back of a strong World Cup showing. Van Gaal was given more funds in his transfer window, and the major incomings in his side included Di Maria, Martial, Schneiderlin, Depay, Rojo, Blind, Falcao, and Schweinsteiger. He also used a large variety of tactics across both seasons, so there will be some conflating of information between seasons and formations, just to give you a general overview. Across the 2 seasons, his most commonly used formations were the 4-2-3-1, 4-1-4-1, and variations of the 3-5-2. Although the formations may have changed, the general principles remain the same. there was a much greater emphasis on possession, rising from 54% under Moyes to 59% in Van Gaal's first season. They often looked to build up from the back, and we would see Daley Blind, a natural midfielder, begin at centre-back often to facilitate this. And the build-up play was very methodical, with players taking up consistent positions to automate many phases of play, with the man on the ball knowing where his options would be before he even received it. But again, United faced some problems in the midfield. When Di Maria initially joined, he was used on the right, but he could also slot into the left central midfield role well. His proactivity with the ball meant that he could drive the team up the pitch and look for opportunities to create. But he soon fell out of favour, meaning that Van Gaal's midfield contained Schneiderlin, Herrera and Schweinsteiger. All were capable midfielders, but were more focused on retaining the ball than looking to create. Rooney would at times look to drop in from higher up to create for Van Persie ahead of him. But now, Van Persie was flagging and prone to injuries, meaning that Rooney was often stuck higher up the pitch. The result of all of this was that United would easily progress through their own third and the middle third using positional play, but they lacked the attacking thrust in the final third. The difference is where successful teams that use positional play emphasize the speed of passing, Van Gaal's men were lethargic in possession, meaning that teams could adapt easily, being willing to give up the ball in the first two thirds and then anticipating their movements in the final third. Again, this is not helped by the makeup of their midfield. So, with teams sitting deep, there was often no space for the expansive ball into a runner in beyond that United fans love. Instead, the forwards would end up playing with their back to goal and were functioning more as target men. But one thing his side excelled at was in their defensive phase. By maintaining short distances between players during the build-up, when they did lose the ball, they could counter-press easily to win it high up. In his first season, they were the most efficient pressers, with the lowest passes per defensive action of 7.13, and maintaining a similar number in his second season. But his turgid style of football was deemed unacceptable, and despite winning the FA Cup, he was soon shown the door. They pivoted once again, getting in a proven winner in Jose Mourinho. And several players were brought in, including Lindelof, Bailly, Fred, Matic, Mkhitaryan, and superstars like Lukaku, Sanchez, Ibrahimovic, and Pogba during his reign. And generally, he opted for the 4-2-3-1 across a spell. And whilst when possible, they looked to build up short, Mourinho's side was more willing to be direct when necessary. In a few matches, Mourinho started Fellaini as the 10 to facilitate this, as his hold-up play was outstanding. He could also use Ibrahimovic and Lukaku to perform similar roles as his reign continued. But generally, the central midfield once again was a problem for the Red Devils. With Rooney and then Lingard used as the 10s, it meant that Pogba was often started in the double pivot. He did use his excellent passing range to move the Reds up the pitch, but it limited his influence in the final third. He could still just as easily carry the ball past challenges up the pitch, but this often left his partner isolated, meaning that they could be vulnerable in the transition. This was one of the reasons Nemanja Matic was brought in during his second season to more efficiently cover for Pogba's forays forward. And the 10 position was a major problem, with Rooney now being past his best and Lingard never truly being at the required level. And as a result, they struggled with chance creation in the final third. So Mata, who started on the right, would often tuck in early to take over this role, and this left space for the energetic Valencia to overlap. On the left, whether it was Martial, Sanchez or Rashford who took up the role, all three preferred to tuck infield and function more like inside forwards, meaning there was a lot of onus on Shaw to attack, who was also having an inconsistent period in his career. Neither of the fullbacks were outstanding crossers, meaning that ironically, the United team best equipped to take advantage of crossing had the worst delivery from out wide. And despite bringing in silverware, Mourinho was soon shown the door. Manchester United struggled to move on from Ferguson and have still struggled to find a return to their roots. Fans will be hoping that things change under Solskjaer, although his reign has been filled with high highs and low lows. But what do you make of each manager that has taken over? Drop it down below. A quick shout out to my Patreons for helping to make this video possible. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com/footballmadesimple and you'll get rewards like early access to videos and exclusive content. As you can see, we couldn't dig too in-depth when covering so many tactics, so let me know if there's any of these sides you'd like to see covered in depth down below. If you made it this far, drop a football emoji somewhere in your comment to make it easier for me to search and reply to your comments. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Get Psyched 6 and Lewis for helping to support me on Patreon. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.